Welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Amanda Mason. For the next half hour, we'll look back at the life and legacy of Arizona Senator John McCain. We've been digging through the Cronkite News archives, taking a look at our coverage of the senator over the years, from his time as a Navy fighter pilot to representing the people of Arizona in Congress. McCain spent a lifetime in service to our nation. Cronkite News reporter Olivia Richard looks back on McCain's political career in Arizona.
John McCain's entry into politics came soon after he moved to Arizona with his wife Cindy. A former Navy fighter pilot and POW, John McCain was a born fighter, and after returning from Vietnam, he sought to continue his service for the country he loved. Just a year after moving to Arizona, McCain was elected to Congress in 1982.
He clearly understood the importance of service in the Congress and wanted to jump in there and do that if he could. And he got involved in a race that I thought would be hard for him to win because he was running against some state senators who had been around for a long time, state representatives, but he outworked them and he won.
And that work ethic is what helped him win over voters in his race for Senate just 4 years later. That Senate seat replaced retiring Republican U.S. Senator Barry Goldwater. Despite following Goldwater, McCain set out to make his own name.
McCain was a hero, a war hero, a Navy figure. A guy knowledgeable about Washington. He'd been liaison to the U.S. Senate when he was still in the Navy. So he was a different figure and defining himself in a way that was making a huge impact, but very different than Senator Goldwater.
McCain's attitude toward his job was clear from the start. He was loyal to the party, but not controlled by its politics.
He always examined the issue himself and came to his own conclusions and wasn't afraid to take a stance. Lots of people, when I first got to Washington, lots of people thought, well, if you're a dutiful Republican in Congress, you have to do what the Republican president wants done. And John McCain, I think, always understood that they're different institutions and they can have different positions.
As a senator, McCain developed a reputation for being an outspoken maverick who put principles before party. And over time, his independence became more bold.
I think that he became more secure over time through his years in the House and then as he got to the Senate, and in some ways a little bit more of a rebel as he grew in office and became more secure and more sure of himself.
McCain didn't always see eye to eye with his fellow members of Congress. However, when it came to issues impacting the people of his state, at the very least, he was always willing to listen, a trait that helped him gain the respect of his peers. Both
building respect amongst his colleagues, but also kind of building resentment amongst his colleagues. In some ways, kind of the least popular Republican in the conference because he just was never a go-along-to-get-along guy, or never a guy that would say yes just because he was asked.
Senator McCain's time in the military played a huge role in shaping his politics, and he became an expert in foreign affairs and issues of national defense.
His instincts on what to do about national security worldwide are, I think, the best of anybody that I know. He has traveled more extensively than most others. He knows the national leaders, and he knows the defense issues, so his instincts about the proper course of action on any of these national security matters is just second to none.
As a former prisoner of war, McCain was outspoken on issues relating to Homeland Security, the military, and the treatment of veterans and MIAs.
There are still significant numbers of Vietnam veterans who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorders, other problems such as Agent Orange effects and others that need assistance and care, and I don't believe are receiving the level of assistance that they perhaps deserve.
And when it came to issues impacting the state of Arizona, McCain was a fearsome adversary, but willing to work on issues across the aisle.
When he made decisions regarding this state, it was about conscience, yes, but it was about the constituents that elected him. And he was pretty forthright about doing that.
One of his biggest bipartisan achievements was the McCain-Feingold Act, officially known as the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act of 2002.
The bill would require that all labor unions give notice to non-union individuals who are forced to pay agency fees annual notice of their BEC rights. Such notice would occur by mail and must inform the worker how much money he or she could receive.
It passed in both houses of Congress and was signed into law by President Bush, an achievement 7 years in the making. But John McCain aspired for a bigger platform, one outside the Senate. In 1999, after years of closed-door whispers, McCain officially decided to throw his hat into the presidential arena, announcing his candidacy for the presidency of the United States.
We must give the government of the United States back to the people, take it out of the hands of the special interests, and make sure that the corrupting influence, and it does corrupt and has corrupted Washington, D.C., is taken away, and you, again, are represented. And I am committed to that change till the last breath I draw, because we must stop the corruption in Washington, D.C.
Despite the momentum, McCain lost the GOP nomination to George W. Bush.
But I am eager to start on the work ahead, and I believe America is ready for a new beginning.
After a failed run, McCain returned to the Senate, where he continued working tirelessly for the people of Arizona.
Lots of senators get elected, and then they disappear for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and you don't see them until election year again. That's never been John McCain. He was consumed by this job.
So 8 years later, when he announced he would run again for president, it came as no surprise.
I think this was on his mind for some time, and there'd been a lot of talk about it, and so you get used to the idea that he's really going to run. He's really going to win the primary.
Once again, McCain showed himself as a maverick, shaking up the campaign by selecting a relatively unknown Sarah Palin as his vice presidential running mate, a decision that proved both unexpected and risky.
It made it harder to tell people that John McCain was, in fact, a serious candidate who could be a very good president, when you're always kind of occasionally being pulled off into debating something that Sarah Palin had said.
Facing a charismatic Barack Obama and a downturn in the economy, McCain's campaign began to struggle.
And CNN can now project that Barack Obama, 47 years old, will become the president-elect of the United States.
After losing his second presidential bid, McCain returned to the Senate more passionate than ever.
I think the loss was hard on him. I mean, a loss by any candidate is always hard on that candidate. I think he bounced back at the end very, very well, and went on to have great impact in the Senate beyond that. But losing is not fun. I think, that said, he also handled it pretty darn well. I mean, you're down for a little while, and then you examine yourself and you come back, and I think he came back stronger than ever, more determined to have an impact.
And nowhere was this more on display than in the vote to repeal Obamacare, where John McCain's thumbs-down vote buried the effort to reform the Affordable Care Act. This vote came soon after McCain was hospitalized for several days after a surgery to remove a blood clot revealed a deadly brain cancer, something his daughter Meghan McCain spoke to his longtime friend Joe Biden about on The View.
One of the things that gave Bo courage, my word, was John. Your dad, you may remember when you were a little kid, your dad took care of my Bo. Your dad, when he was a mill aide, worked with me, became friends with Bo. And Bo talked about your dad's courage, not about illness, but about his courage.
John McCain's dedication to his job, his state, and his nation defined his career.
Most of all, John wanted to be in the arena, fighting the fight, like Teddy Roosevelt used to talk about. You don't stand on the sidelines. That's not what life is all about. You get in the dusty arena and you get knocked down, you get defeated, but you pick yourself up and you win some battles and you feel good about it because you made a difference. That's John's whole life, to make a difference for his country.
However, what meant the most to the man who served his nation and called Arizona home was his family.
His family is so important to him. And I'll tell you, he is so proud of his family. Now, he talks about them in sometimes sort of scatological ways. Oh, that Jimmy, you know, whatever. Oh, Megan is always on TV or whatever. He is so proud of them, you can't believe it. John wanted his life to matter. And it has mattered. And the reason is because he never shied away from a controversy or a fight or an effort. If there was something going on, he wanted to get involved in it, be in the middle of it, and do his best to influence it. And if you can say at the end of your life that you think you've made a difference because you've involved yourself in a lot of those challenges, what better thing can you say about what you've accomplished in your life?
In a congressional career spanning more than 3 decades, McCain sponsored 53 bills that went on to become law. While in the House of Representatives, he focused on Native American affairs, specifically affecting tribes here in Arizona. During his first Senate term, the Native American Languages Act he sponsored became law in 1990. In 1994, he sponsored the Yavapai Prescott Indian Tribe Water Rights Settlement Act. In 2002, the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act, known as McCain-Feingold Act, became law. In 2003, President Bush signed McCain's bill to reauthorize the U.S. Fire Administration. In 2005, a change to the Defense Appropriations Act, known as the McCain Amendment, became the Detainee Treatment Act, prohibiting cruel and degrading punishment of prisoners, including those held in Guantanamo Bay. More recent achievements include the Ashland Mike Amber Alert and Indian Country Act and the VA Mission Act of 2018. In the hundreds of speeches Senator McCain made throughout his career, he advocated for veterans, prioritized national security, and most recently bemoaned the lack of cooperation in Congress. Cronkite News has covered many of his speeches, and we take a look back at some of his memorable moments.
You ain't seen nothing yet. You got to be in the arena, and that's what we're here for.
I am committed to that change till the last breath I draw, because we must stop the corruption in Washington, D.C.
Let's turn the government back to our governor and our legislature, and let's let the states decide these issues.
I don't believe in walls. I believe in freedom. We should build no walls in a futile attempt to keep the world at bay. Walls are for cowards, not Americans.
When America leads from behind, some other really bad people lead from in front.
But I'm a proud Republican. And there is no room in the Republican Party for anyone who denigrates or makes a statement that the World War II was not a fight for freedom and people throughout the world.
I think of the great honor and privilege I had to serve with people who were much stronger than I was.
This country doesn't owe me anything. I owe America. The greatest privilege of my life has been to serve and to grow old in my country's service.
I believe that serving a cause greater than one's self-interest is the noblest of all things that one can do.
When I leave public office, all I want to have said about me by the people I have been so blessed to serve is this: he believed in us, and we believed in him.
So I say to the people of Arizona, thank you.
As chairman of the Senate's Armed Services Committee, Senator McCain worked towards making the U.S. Armed Services one of the world's strongest fighting forces. In 2015, he sat down with Cronkite News reporter Blake Bernard and discussed the conflict in Syria and how to keep the nation secure from internal terror threats.
Senator McCain discussed his ideas to solving the Syrian conflict. In addition to instituting a no-fly zone, he wants U.S. military involvement.
Take out ISIS, that means go to Raqqa, where their base is, and a multinational military composed primarily of Sunni Arab countries, the United States contributing about 10,000 of the 100,000 that would be required.
Sending troops overseas is always a tough decision, but McCain believes when it comes to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, those extreme decisions need to be made.
Because he's the one that caused all this, and he's the one that has already killed 250,000 of his citizens.
Additionally, McCain says when it comes to stopping ISIS in America, that means an increased national security and Silicon Valley helping out.
Have our military and the high-tech community sit down and work this out. There's bound to be a resolution.
Senator McCain's dedication to the armed forces began at the U.S. Naval Academy. He graduated in 1958, following in his father and grandfather's footsteps. In 2017, soon after the cancer diagnosis, McCain went back to where his career of service began. Cronkite News reporter Bailey Vogt was there as McCain addressed the Corps of Midshipmen at the U.S. Naval Academy.
It is a noble cause. It is your cause, and it's worth living and dying for.
Senator John McCain has given a number of high-profile speeches since being diagnosed with brain cancer this summer, but his address Monday to midshipmen at the Naval Academy may have been the most emotional yet.
You will make sacrifices for your fellow Americans,
who won't be asked to make sacrifices for you. That's your calling. Thank you for accepting it.
Alexander LARRALDE from Litchfield Park said that seeing his senator speak was impactful in a way that his non-Arizona classmates could not understand.
They see him as a POW graduate of the Naval Academy and a naval officer, but I see him as a little more someone who represents the home state of Arizona and who is representing the people I know back in Arizona, and that just means a lot to me.
Midshipmen have to be nominated to the Academy by a congressman from their state. And for MADELINE Arbogast from SAHUARITA, that meant a personal connection to seeing McCain speak.
Guys, that's my senator. He nominated me. Like, he's the reason I'm here. And so I was just really happy to be able to know him on a more personal level than the rest of the brigade.
As in other recent speeches, McCain urged his audience to reject the partisan thinking that he says has divided us domestically and isolated us internationally.
We have to remind our sons and daughters that we became the most powerful nation on earth by tearing down walls, not building them.
McCain's message was one about the struggles we face, but also one of hope in what America can be.
I believe in Americans. We're capable of better. I've seen it. We're hopeful, compassionate people. And we still have leaders who will uphold the values that made America great.
That message resonated most with Colin JUDSTRA from Tucson, who said this speech generated a sense of pride for the Arizona midshipmen.
He has seen the best and the worst of our country, and honestly, for him to keep that much positivity in what we believe in and the power that we hold as a world power, it's very, very awesome to see.
In Annapolis, Bailey Vogt, Cronkite News.
I have led in taking care of the problems and issues that confront the state of Arizona, whether it be a fish hatchery up in Mojave County, or whether it be the Yuma Heritage Crossing down in Yuma, or whether it's keeping the A-10 at Davis Mountain Air Force Base.
Though Senator McCain made headlines for much of his national and international work, he had a lasting impact closer to home. Across the state, you'll find Senator McCain had a hand in shaping our state. In northwest Arizona, right on the Arizona-Nevada state line, is the Willow Beach Fish Hatchery. 5 years ago, one of the pipes there broke, forcing the hatchery to stop stocking rainbow trout in the Colorado River. Cronkite News reporter Tweelon Nugent followed the story, getting the attention of Senator McCain.
Hey, we really need your guys' help. This is something that I can do. They're not going to listen to me. They need you.
Rusty Brown, owner of Rusty's Riviera Marina in Bullhead City, urged state politicians to protect the economy of Mojave County by restocking trout. And those politicians listened.
There's an individual here who probably is more affected than anybody and has been more effective, Rusty Brown, who runs his...
Senator John McCain and Congressman Paul Gosar wrote letters to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service back in September of last year. And 8 months later, there is finally a solution to save $75 million in economic output in Mojave County.
Nothing that was going to be done, so with an unusual combination of state, local, federal officials, we were able to come together to fix the hatchery.
Officials from Mojave County, Arizona Game and Fish, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service formalized an agreement to repair the pipeline that feeds water to Willow Beach Fish Hatchery, which will allow the hatchery to resume operation of raising more than 140,000 trout. The $776,000 repair cost will be split between federal and state wildlife agencies.
It's going to affect the whole area and the whole community. We're going to get people from all over the place again.
When Mojave County has fish swimming in the lakes and rivers, it means money. Money from sport fishing tournaments, touring anglers, bait and tackle sales, and boat rentals. The economic impact won't be felt just yet, though.
There'll be a lull because it'll be a little bit that we have to do in terms of the maintenance that's associated with fixing the pipe at the hatchery.
Although it has been a lengthy process, Rusty is happy to know that his state officials are concerned about the livelihood of his community and his business.
These guys really care about this. This is a quiet industry. Fishing is something of families and communities.
McCain's impact is also felt further up the Colorado River at the Grand Canyon. In April 2018, the senator was honored for his efforts to help preserve the park. Cronkite News reporter Tyler FINGERT was there for the ceremony.
The park is one of the natural wonders of the world, and today 2 people who have helped to preserve and protect the park were honored here. The Grand Canyon Association and the National Park Service unveiled a rendering of a tribute plaque for Senator John McCain and the late Representative Morris Udall. They pointed to their shared love for the canyon and the different policies they've helped to put into place to protect the park, like promoting safety, helping to preserve the Colorado River, which runs right through the canyon, and helping to protect the animals that live here. Today's unveiling is meant to honor their work and make sure those who visit the park know how they've helped to make sure it's preserved. John McCain wasn't here, but his wife Cindy was, along with members of the Udall family. Cindy says it was important for her to be here today.
To dedicate something like this to both Mo and to my husband is, it's wonderful. I mean, it really is. It's heartwarming and it's such an honor, and I'm just glad I could represent him today.
The recognition of these 2 great men are receiving today is well deserved. They are true patriots and examples for us all.
Beyond his years of service to both the country and the state of Arizona, for many, Senator McCain will be remembered simply for the man he was. His colleagues reflect on what John McCain meant to them.
It's pretty hard, Mr. President, to think of any serious issues facing our nation without recalling the role that John played in so many things that are important to our country.
John McCain is somebody that puts country over party, which I think more people should do. I think that he has been a voice for solving problems and working together.
Traveling with John McCain is like a long march with Paul McCartney. You work hard and everyone in the world knows him. And he is an extraordinary leader and one of the most principled people I've ever met.
Senator McCain has preserved and the honor of our country as a great warrior, but also as someone who, wherever the weak were threatened and the just were persecuted, he made it clear that America was on their side.
And I'm so grateful for the fact that he came to Arizona, that he represented Arizona, that he fought hard for his country, and that he lived an honorable life.
Senator McCain received numerous awards throughout his career, including the Liberty Medal and the LBJ Foundation Award. His many military commendations include the Silver Star and 2 Purple Hearts. Cronkite News reporter Shelby Lindsay was there in March of 2018 when McCain received the Naval Academy's Alumni Association Award, which was accepted by one of his closest friends, former Vice President Joe Biden.
John is an American hero who's lifted all of us up. Lifted his nation up.
Former Vice President Joe Biden has often called Senator John McCain a hero, most recently at the United States Naval Academy, where McCain was honored as a distinguished graduate.
His maverick reputation first took place at the Academy, where he became better known for his disciplinary scrapes than his academic achievements.
The class of '58 nominated McCain, even though people like class president Gordon Gersun did not know him well during school.
The first I really knew about him was when he became a POW.
McCain flew combat missions over Vietnam, where he was captured and spent more than 5 years as a North Vietnamese prisoner of war, turning down chances to be freed. Biden said few could live up to that standard.
How many others, knowing they could go free, would subject themselves to 5 more years of torture because he adhered to the standard? First man in, first man out.
McCain was awarded not just for his military service, but his time in politics as well. Gersun described McCain's political career as elegant.
He seemed to have a lot more right answers than many other congressmen did.
Biden commended McCain's military and political career, saying he is one of the best characters the Senate has ever known. Reporting from Annapolis, Maryland, Shelby Lindsay, Cronkite News.
Senator McCain ran for president twice, first in 2000 and then again in 2008. He also ran in 7 congressional races, and he was elected and then re-elected to seats first in the House and then the Senate. McCain was no stranger to the mudslinging that came during the campaigns, but told Cronkite News reporter Blake Bernard that the change in tone during the 2016 presidential race was a disturbing shift.
I'm sorry to say now that it has reached a new low.
Senator McCain ran for president twice, including a 2008 Republican nomination. He says in order for politicians to return to civil discourse, you need to step up.
The American people have to reject this kind of mudslinging and character assassinations that are going on. I think they have to reject people that practice it. I never called an opponent of mine a liar. I never disparaged their character or their integrity.
Hardly a week goes by without a candidate making the news for a backhand comment or dramatic statement regarding their opponents. McCain says they've lost track of what is important.
We've lost our view of the issues and concentrate on what the latest insult was. We have a world on fire.
Over the years, dozens of Cronkite News reporters have covered John McCain. Some have been ignored and others rebuffed, but many had the chance to speak with the man who became known as the Maverick. And for those reporters who had the opportunity to sit down with Arizona's senior senator, it made a lasting impression of a man on a mission to serve our state and our country in ways both big and small. We'll be continuing our coverage of Senator McCain right here on Arizona PBS.